One. Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan, and welcome to our entertainment show. As you know, we've been airing all week, and we're building up to the hype of our new feature. Obviously, it's not a new feature. It's a feature we ran last year to much vaunted success. It was our Stargate Syfy cult classics documentary, over 38 episodes, and we numerous actors and renowned stars, everyone from Robert Davi to Terrell Rozier to Rachel Luttrell to many famous guest stars appeared in our documentary from all genres of the Stargate universe, whether it be Stargate Atlantis, Stargate SG1, Stargate Universe, Stargate Consortium, or the movie Stargate itself, the original movie. But today I'm delighted to be joined as we start season 2 off now with a bang. I'm delighted to be joined to go back to the old Goa'uld sort of bros, the brotherhood of the Goa'ulds, and I'm delighted to be joined by one of the system lords himself. He played the role of Camulus, the one and only Steve Bacic. And Steve, playing a bad guy.
1 second, Jim. Jim, 1 second. 1 second. Bang! There you go. Started off with a bang, bang, bang. Wake up, everybody. Season 2. Let's go. Okay, sorry.
Season 2, no problem in the world, Steve. Thanks for the hype. And Camulus,
Sure.
a bad guy in a world-renowned, famous sci-fi series that has spanned the globe in terms of its population, that has been dubbed in so many languages, that has been seen so many times. And to play a character like that, a bad guy with so much mystique into it, is that one of your proudest sort of fictional sort of sci-fi characters? If you had a poster of him, would it be up in your own bedroom, dare I say?
That'd be a little egotistical of me, Steve, but Camulus would definitely have a poster of himself. Yeah, I think in Camulus's house, it'd be all mirrors.
All mirrors.
Yeah. It'd all be mirrors. There'd be no walls. Yeah, but it's definitely it's a very fun character to play. The only regret I have about the character is that it was too short-lived. I would have loved another shot at negotiating with their commander. I think I got a raw deal, you know.
And I suppose, Steve, in terms of the character Camulus, he was a Celtic mythology, a god of war in terms of, so he almost bore that sort of gladiator sort of element, that sort of Roman sort of Julius Maximus type of guy. And what sort of bearing did you got when you saw the script in terms of this character Camulus? Did you research a bit into the character, and did you go for that type of Roman gladiator type era in terms of how you wanted to portray him?
Yeah, I think definitely in terms of strategy. I go for the simplest, the simplest applicable direction. In the job title itself, God of War, which can be perceived in many different ways. There is physical war, there's mental war, there's spiritual war, there's all sorts of psychological. So that's the mental. Yeah, I once I understood that, it was a question of how do I get what I want. And as you could see in the episodes, he was strategic, but in a way he wasn't strategic enough. I think his ego got the better of him. Yeah, I didn't do that much research into the gladiator aspect. I think the wardrobe did the job for me, because it was great wardrobe. Yeah, one of my favorite. Actually, I do have pictures in that outfit. I definitely do. Yeah.
And Steve, obviously, you appeared previously as Major Patrick Coburn in Stargate. Obviously, you left an impression for the Camulus role. And was that a role when it came up, your talent agent, or were you advised for that, or did they want you back for that, or did you retry for that role again?
Yeah, no, I had to audition for that one again.
Oh, you had to audition for that one again. And obviously, coming in to play that sort of Camulus role, how did you differentiate it from the first time in terms of the previous sort of audition? Did you go in feeling, right, that I need to go a whole completely different angle with this in terms of trying to make myself stand out in terms of portraying this bad guy? Because Patrick Coburn was just an ordinary, dare I say, SGC member. Was nothing spectacular in terms of his day-to-day life.
Yeah, it's quite the polar opposite. On one end, you got Coburn, who's an order taker, and you got Camulus, who's an order giver. It's quite different. So in terms of how I approach that, I'm not particularly, me myself personally, I would like to think I'm a pretty nice guy. So the fun part about playing roles like this is you get to go into areas of your psyche or your emotions where you can be a bit arrogant, you can be a bit dismissive. Everything is to your pleasure. So again, the difference is Coburn would say yes sir, whereas Camulus doesn't even have to snap his fingers and things are done. So it's definitely a different mindset, different approach.
And how did you find those episodes interacting with the other Goa'ulds, Yi and the Amata Saru, and the actors Kira Clavad, who played Amata Saru, and Mike Krista, and the whole notion of the whole system lords? Was that sort of fun, that sort of whole aspect in that? Did you get a great sense of enjoying those scenes when you were sort of portraying the interaction between ye fellow cast members that was separate, dare I say, to the main regular cast members?
Well, I think there's definitely, what's interesting about it is, and this is what I believe about power, is that as much as there's these divisions, you got the system lords and you've got humans, you've got other types of creatures or beings. I think that when power is pulled into question, even though they're with me, it's still about me. So they're just a different level of something that I believe, or Camulus would believe, is beneath him. Again, this character's ego was way beyond, which was, I believe, his downfall. So when he interacted, yes, he would definitely have a modification in terms of how I view them, but really still I view them as lesser than me. And that's fun.
And Steve, what was obviously the wardrobe with Camulus and the outfit and the sort of gear obviously meant that you probably had to be in a bit earlier for makeup and wardrobe. Was it heavy wearing? Was that the shield sort of thing? Well, the clothes that you were wearing, did it make you sort of perspire? Because obviously there's probably long days, long scenes going around in the same outfit day after day. Was you carrying that bit of extra weight around?
Oh yeah, definitely was. I think the most uncomfortable. It was anytime you get into any of that, anything other than t-shirts and shorts and things like that. Especially when you go into a period piece or a sci-fi show, the wardrobe can be in itself very, very challenging. But I think it was the boots. I think the boots were the least comfortable. I believe there were knee-high boots that I was wearing. They weren't the most comfortable. The wardrobe itself wasn't extremely heavy. Not the worst that I've had. I used to wear a suit that was 40 or 50 pounds of leather. It was not fun. I used to sweat in that sucker. So this one wasn't too bad. At least I had a kilt on so I could breathe a little.
And Steve, how did you find the interactions with the main regular cast members, Michael Shanks, Amanda Tapping, Christopher Judge, Richard Dean Anderson? Were they awful approachable from day one in terms of your time on Stargate and in between takes? And were they very sort of interacting with sort of cast members? Was there a good vibe, a good chemistry?
I knew a lot of them from before. I knew Michael. I've known Michael for a little while. I think he came over and did Andromeda, which is around the same time, a show that I was on, and I became good friends with all of them. I'm not sure if it was around the time I was doing Camulus, or that's where, because I've done previous episodes, but yeah, Chris and I used to hang out all the time, probably more so than anybody. Amanda, same thing. I knew her from other shows. I believe before Stargate. So Richard, I believe that was the first time I really got a chance to work with Richard. And yeah, he had a very interesting sense of humor, which played very well to our chemistry, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing about Richard, you mentioned, well, an awful lot of people have mentioned that sense of humor, that sort of dry sort of wit. He was very much a guy for the one-liners you saw on screen. He was very much, dare I say, the one-liners off the screen as well. That's a man that liked
Yeah.
to say, get across his point with not very much long sentences, or sharp and quick to the point is what they're saying. Richard Dean Anderson is like.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
And
And it definitely off camera a little. There's people like that that try to break you out of character. I might be one of those people too. But Richard definitely had fun, I believe, with trying to pull people out. I don't know.
And Steve, in terms of working on Stargate, obviously people talk about the locations, the scenes, the studios, the sets, the props. Everything was done to a fine tea in terms of its sophistication. And did you find that from day one, where you walked in terms of, were you blown away by the manicure sort of decorations, the sort of the touch of aspect that nothing was left to chance or seem out of place?
I think it's always interesting when you see, well, in my, obviously, I get to see behind the scenes, and how on the day when you're working, what you're working with, especially if it's a set, it's not in the natural world, and how that comes across on the screen. And you got everything from the proper lighting to visual effects to the set itself. And they did pull it off, especially with the Stargate. Was quite amazing. I mean, this is back quite a few years ago, and I think the special effects on the show and the sets were quite stunning. Yeah.
And Steve, obviously appearing as such a popular character like Camulus and a Goa'uld as well, obviously when his time ended on the series, when you're playing such a prominent character like it, it's almost very hard to come back unless there's an alternate version depicted on a spin-off series like Stargate Atlantis or something, or Stargate Consortium. It's very hard to come back to that SG1 environment again, I imagine.
Yeah, I don't think once you're an established character on any show, it's difficult to come back unless they bring back that character. And that's happened on a few shows where you know, some shows have gone 15 seasons and they've seen you once. A lot of actors will go back 2 or 3 times, as I did with Stargate. But once you've landed a pretty decent, substantial, memorable character, it's very hard to bring you back as anything other than, unless you're in some form of prosthetic or costume that is hiding your appearance.
And Steve, in terms of your own productions now and your own sort of work, I do believe while most people were closing the doors and blocking the windows and taking cover during the global pandemic, Steve Bacic was at work, being creative and productive, and you've something in the pipeline now that can be seen here in Ireland and the UK that was centered on a time during COVID where you had that bit of time to yourself to uptake such a project.
Yeah, that it was one of those things where I've had this script, which I wrote with James Phillips, who I did a series called The Guard. We did about 22 episodes. It was set here in BC, and it was an idea that I thought, well, if I ever get a little bit of money, I want to shoot a movie, and it's going to be a micro budget to start with. And then, of course, never got it done. Got busy working as an actor, and then over COVID, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm looking at all these different protocols to go back to set. You had to go through the medicals. You had to get your shots. You had to be limited. You couldn't be with a group of people. And I'm thinking, geez, I wonder what I could do. And I'm thinking, then I remember my script. I'm going, it's a limited amount of characters. It's interesting. It's very shootable in terms of locations and friendlies, because I was gonna do it myself, my own money. And yeah, so once I decided to do this film, it's called Alter, Alter, and it's been after I finished the film, I ended up getting distribution. I didn't even have a sales agent. I just happened to be talking to a producer friend, and he also has his own distribution company, but his son was running a distribution company, and he goes, send me the trailer, and he was interested. So we got an immediate interest from Tubi, TUBI. So they had a 60-day exclusive, which I believe has just ended. So now it might be available. I know we've sold it on Roku and a few other streaming sites. I believe it's going to be dubbed into in Spanish for I can't remember. Again, I'm terrible at this stuff. I'm terrible at self-promotion. But you can Google it again, Alter. Currently on Tubi, will be on Roku, but I don't know what you have in the UK or Ireland or Europe. But again, it's definitely going to Spain, which will hopefully open up the European markets, and maybe eventually Netflix. I don't know. I don't know if it's the right formatting. We shot it in 4K, so I know that they look for 8K, and there might be some technical issues. Yeah.
Okay, we wish you all the best of luck with it, Steve, and hopefully it sort of takes off. But for the final 30 seconds now, I'm going to take you back to Stargate SG1, and this is a question I've asked everyone from episode 1, as soon as we start off season 1, all the way through, and it's a sort of telling sort of question to finish with. Let's pretend there was a Stargate franchise encyclopedia, a dictionary as such, for all the fictional characters that appeared in Stargate from A to Z, and they came across your character Camulus, and they left 2 blank sentences underneath it in terms of synopsis as such. And your talent, they got onto your talent agent, who got onto you and said, we want Steve Bacic to write those 2 sentences to summarize Camulus up in terms of what a character he is like. If you ever met him coming down the street, if he was coming against him, if you had to tell your significant other what type of guy Camulus is, what would you like those 2 sentences to read?
The most important person in the universe in his own mind, and a really terrible poker player.
A really terrible poker player. On that note, Steve Bacic, an absolute pleasure talking to you today to relive your memories of your time in Stargate SG1, playing one of the system lords, the Camulus himself, the Celtic mythology god of war, one of the most prominent Goa'ulds throughout the series. And Steve, thanks for sharing your memories. We wish your project all the best success in the near future.
Thank
and
you.
hopefully speak to you sometime soon. But for the moment, Steve Bacic, take care, God bless, and stay safe.
Yeah, let me send you out, okay? Let me end this, okay?
Yeah.
Bam,
No
bam,
problem.
bam, 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 bam. Oh, I'm sorry. Bang, bang, bang. See you, James.
Take care, Steve. Take care,
Bye.
Steve. Have a good day, sir.
Yeah. It was fun. Cheers.